This video is going to be short and to the point. This is Kathleen Gage with Power Up for Profits and, more importantly, plant-based eating for health. Recently, the first stage of the mandates to stay at home has been lifted, and it's been shocking, nothing short of shocking, to see on the news people that are in very close quarters, or they're near pool sides, they're elbow to elbow, they're drinking, they're laughing, they're not wearing masks, and they're definitely not social distancing. And the way it looks like a bunch of caged animals that were released and now they've been let out into the wild, which in a way, that's exactly what happened. Now, a lot of people are getting really frustrated saying, why would people do this? Why are they acting this way? And my question is, why are we surprised? Human nature is such that we don't like restrictions put on us, even if those restrictions are in our best interest. Now, I'm not saying one way or another how I feel about the restrictions. Well, let me tell you how I feel. Some of them I think are reasonable, like washing your hands, the social distancing, the wearing masks if you're near at-risk people, and just so that you don't bring things home to elderly people, to family members, and kids are actually the worst offenders as far as unknowingly bringing viruses home. So some of the restrictions are reasonable, others are completely off the charts. They're not really that necessary, but it's a great way to control the masses. And yet, once the restrictions were lifted, the masses went out of control. And it really got me to thinking. I actually was cooking dinner last night, and the news happened to be on, and I was listening to the newscaster talk about how people are, just so close together. They're not social distancing. They're not wearing the masks. And right before that was a short episode. They did a news story on a young man that went out, drove drunk, killed 2 people, and the 3rd sibling is in the hospital in critical condition. Now, what's interesting is the man that was responsible for this accident, the drunk driver, he was on probation for drunk driving. And heard that, then I heard the people out there elbow to elbow, near the poolside, on the beaches, on the boardwalks, and I thought, so why are we surprised when people have been given warnings about drunk driving, that it's not a good thing to do, but people do it? What about diseases that we are responsible for through what we choose to eat, the dead animals that we put in our body? It has been proven that certain foods do cause disease. I just interviewed T. Colin Campbell. He did a phenomenal job of revealing what he went through when he made the connection between cancer and animal-based products. And he was ostracized from many communities within the healthcare industry. And it's so interesting because it has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that what you eat directly impacts your health. Every year in the United States, there are close to 700,000 people who die because of heart-related problems. 700,000 people. And right now with COVID in the United States, there's been 100,000 deaths. So 700,000 deaths, and people aren't changing the way they're eating, the majority of people. What about diabetes? Type 2 diabetes is directly related to what we consume. And yet with diabetes, the long-term impact of diabetes is blindness, amputation, heart problems. Obesity is a factor in diabetes. And yet people aren't making the changes. So why are we so surprised? The reality is, so now that I've done my rant, the reality is we each have to take responsibility for ourselves. And I get it. What we do with COVID directly impacts people around us. Well, doesn't heart disease directly impact our family members and our loved ones? Doesn't diabetes, doesn't obesity, doesn't the cost of what we spend on healthcare, what we spend on food, what we spend on prescription drugs, doesn't that impact people in our lives? So the reality is it's up to each of us to become aware and to be more conscious about the way that we live, what we eat, and how we conduct ourselves. Because as a general rule, most people are not going to change. They changed for a short period of time. They were in panic. They were doing all they could do to prevent from dying. And yet every day people are killing themselves by the food choices they make. This is Kathleen Gage with Plant-Based Eating for Health, encouraging you. Look at what you're eating. Look at what you're consuming on all levels, mind, body, and soul. And are you being fully responsible for the choices that you make and the outcomes that you get? Because your health is directly related to the day-by-day choices that you make. Are you drinking enough fluid? Are you eating the right foods as close to whole and natural as you possibly can? Are you getting exercise, or are you sitting watching the news for hours on end, or glued to social media for hours on end, and you're not getting out and getting movement? Get out, get some sunshine, get that vitamin D, take a walk, go on a run, go on a bike ride, but get some movement, because when you move energetically, you shift things around. Another thing you might want to consider doing is doing some meditation, taking some quiet time. It's amazing how many people wake up and jump into their day, a routine that they've been doing over and over and over, and that routine is not serving them. It's time to wake up. It's really time to wake up. I encourage you, visit my blog, plantbasedeatingforhealth.com, plantbasedeatingforhealth.com. And I have a Facebook group by the same name, Plant-Based Eating for Health group. And you can go to my blog, read any of the blog posts at the end. There's a link to go directly over to the Facebook group. And listen to my podcast show, plantbasedeatingforhealth.com/podcast. That's plantbasedeatingforhealth.com/podcast. I've got some incredible interviews that I've done with these amazing folks who have literally turned their lives around. Brian Rogers, he released 140 pounds and got rid of 6 diseases that were all self-imposed. I interviewed T. Colin Campbell, who is the author of the China Study. Phenomenal interview. Madeline Eno, who is my editor, and she is a wordsmith. She's a word mapper, a book mapper. Phenomenal woman who's been plant-based for many years, and there's many more in there. So I encourage you, go in, check out the podcast show, check out the blog postings, and really look at your responsibility in how you're eating and the outcomes that you have as far as your health, your vitality, and your influence on others. This is Kathleen Gage, wishing you a happy, healthy, sane day.
Thank you for your commitment to an ethical life through plant-based food choices. The kind of choices that are kind to your body, the environment, and most of all, animals. Be sure to leave a review and rating of the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show.